So one thing that I found very interesting recently, so the Emmy nominations are about to be announced, and my being amount is about to, it's like a month away. But it's coming soon, and one of the things that's starting to happen now, if you go on the trades like Deadline and Variety, Zap to It, it's that they are now, you're starting to see those advertisements for the shows that are for your consideration. And I found this a very interesting conversation because this is almost like the presidential campaigns. Like, is it really okay for people to... It's pretty much a whoever has the most money, pretty much like sweepstakes almost. This is just for nominations. This isn't even for actually going for the actual win. So I wanted to get your thoughts as to what you guys thought about the For Your Consideration ad campaigns. We'll start with you, Emma. What's your opinion on it?
I think several things. I have no problem with them. I think that it's a good way to remind people who can vote for, say, the Emmys, which are coming up, about what shows are out there, because if it was like a half season and aired in the fall, then you've forgotten about it by now. But that doesn't mean that it shouldn't be considered. It's just this gentle reminder. But I also think that my opinion's kind of irrelevant because it's going to happen, because it's the entertainment industry. It's about making money first and foremost. And so I think that it's going to happen. Like, the First Amendment says they can do it. So, like, that's the cheap, like, easy argument. But I think it's there. I think there's no stopping them. And I think that it's a good way to remind people of shows that are still eligible for things. So, for instance, I absolutely love the Emmys. Like, I'm a huge award show junkie. And I forgot that the last 8 episodes of, the last bunch of episodes of Breaking Bad are eligible for this year's Emmys. I forgot about that until I saw the For Your Consideration Emmys. And I can't imagine, like, there's no reason to think that, say, the average Emmy voter would also like have mildly forgotten unless reminded by these things. I think it's also a good way for voters to be aware of shows that didn't necessarily get high ratings, didn't necessarily get, all the advertising in the world when they first came out, because they were like cable network shows, the kind that are like slightly niche, don't necessarily have like a huge audience, but are really, really good. So shows like The Affair last year did not have like huge ratings. It was very much a Showtime show. It wasn't like a big deal, but because of For Your Consideration type ads, it's fantastic. It's so well written and it's interestingly told, and it has such an interesting view on the human condition. It absolutely deserved to be nominated for the Emmys, and it wouldn't, like, no one would have thought of it without these kinds of ads. So I think that they can be a really good thing for the smaller series that just have something to say about people.
But then my question is with that, because like I'm just now learning that they do this. Like, it's crazy because I've been watching TV and stuff forever. I realized they do this. But then does it just become whoever, because the more advertisements you can get, the more publicity you can get as far as advertisement goes. Does it mean that it won't, whoever has the most money to put out more ads and more publicity could win versus somebody who maybe doesn't have all that money, but the show was better well written and more well received by audience? Does that make sense at all? Do you understand what I'm asking? Yeah. How does that, like, I mean, wouldn't that mess things up kind of, or like not make it as fair? Like, if, like, say for instance, me and you are in this show and we have all this money, our show wasn't that good, but because we have all this money, we can then buy all these advertisers, billboards, buy commercials, all this stuff. But them two have a show which is way better written, better cast, but they don't have that kind of publicity. Does that then mean that their show would get kind of like booted under the rug and ours would get seen and nominated way more?
Yeah. I mean, my whole thing is, it gets out of hand a lot. And one of the bigger issues is when those big companies like the NBCs, the ABCs, the CBSs, all those, and now you're seeing with the Netflix, like they're going beyond the advertisements. Now it's like everybody's getting gifts. And it's just kind of like
gifts.
And it's just kind of like at a point and not like hardcore gifts, like no one's getting watches, I don't think. Like, that's not a thing. But like I'm talking about like the way you can still package up a certain like thing. Like one of the things when I work at VH1 and MTV is that we get all the producers get their stuff and excuse me, they get like they're part of the Producers Club, so they get all these Emmy stuff. And the creative, I'm not going to go into details like who does what because that's classified stuff, so I don't confidential stuff. But like the stuff that you see, it's just like really like that's memorable and that's fine. I don't like I get what they're doing, but it gets to a point where the big companies who can afford that, and not only afford that, but be able to afford to give it to everybody, compared to the smaller ones that can only like do a little blip. And my bigger issue is that it's so easy for them, because you also say, like, is a reminder for the people, but, like, honestly, that's for us. The people who have been on the committee have been doing it for years. They don't forget things. And so and they only do certain things for a certain amount of categories. They don't do all the categories.
Right.
So it's crazy easy for them to just say, okay, I'm going to dedicate a night to watch all of these shows it's not movies where it's like 70 hours long that you'd have to watch. It's only, I guess, if you have 6 shows, sometimes only half hours, so maybe it's less than 6 hours to watch them. And so you go, okay, obviously this one was better, this wins. As opposed to getting like constant reminders from other advertisements, and now you're swayed by not what's the best, but how often you've seen something.
Okay.
And so I don't think advertisements are entirely wrong per se, but I don't like how how the campaigns. It just takes away from the actual production of it. Because, for example, 30 Rock on NBC, I'm okay with the show. I'm not thrilled by it. But there are just years where, like, they should just never have won an Emmy. But they win them all the time because NBC has the money and has that creative strategy to do all that.
I'm going to disagree with you on 2 levels. First of all, I think 30 Rock was fantastic.
I like the show, but there are seasons which I 100% disagree that they should not have won.
I guess that's more of an opinion thing. That's not a fact. It's a difference of opinion. I think
a lot of people agreed with that, but
a lot of people agreed with me. Like,
if you go back to years,
it's not an objective fact. That's a point of view.
a point of view of a lot of people.
And
But
a lot of
continue.
people
It's fine.
agree
It's
with
fine.
me. No, you can't say that.
Secondly,
advertisement does not necessarily mean that you overlook something that's just not that good. Something like you brought up Transformers in the other clip. It's easier to do movies because they have that much more publicity. Transformers has tons of publicity, and it still flopped the last film that came out. Like, it just did not make as much money as it was supposed to. And
still made a buttload of money. Like a buttload of money. Like it still was over, but I agree.
Like,
it did make projections.
Exactly.
But everybody's
which
rich off
means
of
that it didn't do as well as it was supposed to, which means that they're probably not going to make another one.
They are.
They are
making another
They
one.
are?
Yeah,
Okay,
they are.
anyway.
That's what I'm saying. They still made a lot of money.
It didn't meet projections.
Right.
And it still got critically panned. And there's a certain point where it had tons of publicity and people still didn't think it was that good. I read the reviews and it didn't get critical love. And critical love is what you need to win awards shows because it's people like critics who are voting for the Emmys. So that's what's coming up. So I think that the advertisement can benefit a show if they can get more of it, but the show has to be good in the first place. You won't see shows that just aren't that good, even if they're network shows, getting these Emmy nominations because they just don't have the quality goods to back it up.